Let's get into it. Sold Not For Sale podcast. Coach Colin here. I have so many clips for you guys today. We're going to start off with Joe Rogan. He's shocked that China is buying up all sorts of farmland, but it's not just that they're buying farmland. It's why they're buying it and where they're buying it that has become very questionable. And I like that Dr. Phil's been sounding the alarm about this. I've listened to a bunch of people talk about this months ago. I myself made a video about this about 7 months ago, but it's good to hear that a lot of more people are talking about it currently. Now, I'm going to be touching on some stuff that's in the clip. They're going to be bringing up Trump and why Trump hasn't sounded the alarm on this since he's been running for president. Now, I'm going to go into his defense. I'm going to break all that down for you. The reason why he is not actually talking about this directly. And then we're going to be touching on his mass deportation operation that he wants to put through. And that's going to be a whole bunch of clips there. We're going to be talking about the laws he's going to be using. He's going to be speaking a little bit. It's going to get very interesting. Then we're going to talk about China buying up all the farmland, what they're actually doing it for, where they're doing it, next to military installations. Is this a national security threat? And then we're wrapping it up on Arkansas, because Arkansas did what every single state should be doing. They took action. I can't wait for you guys to hear it. Let's start with Joe Rogan. Don't forget about IamCoachColin.com. We got all sorts of gear for you guys. Go and get yours now. Public Enemy #1, Sold Not For Sale, and much, much more. Discount code is IamCoachColin, all capital letters, all one word, one L in the name, Colin. Let's go.
You really have to wonder. You really do have to wonder.
Did you ever think you'd be in a position where you'd be talking like this?
No.
Because it sounds conspiratorial, right?
It does sound conspiratorial, and you know, I deal with psychological issues, but these are issues that are on people's mind now. They're saying, I'm anxious about this. It bothers me. I feel like my family is under attack here. We don't have the peace of mind that we used to have. We don't have even farmers are saying, you know, this is troubling to us. We don't know what to do about this.
Yeah.
We don't know how to feel about it. We don't know what to say about it. And nobody's talking about this. Well, I'm talking about it.
Well, I'm glad you are. Because if not, we'll be talking about it when it's too late. And we'll be saying, how the fuck did we not see this coming?
And what I want is, I think if people will start talking about it, people will hear us talking about it and say, you know, these aren't crazy conspiracy guys. These are pretty commonsensical guys that are saying, we should just ask the questions. We should be asking, why isn't anybody asking the questions? And we're not the only people asking the questions, but we're certainly have big microphones to be asking the questions with.
It's just a complete failure of corporate media that they're not asking these questions.
Yeah, and that is the entire reason that I did this network, Merit Street Media. You know, Robin, and I was sitting at our kitchen bar at our house in California, and I was flipping back and forth between different news networks, and I was so frustrated. I said, why won't somebody just tell the truth? Why does everything have to be spin? Why didn't somebody just say what's happening and let us do it? The media just won't say it straight. And she was sitting there eating, and she didn't even look up. She just said, well, you are the media. And I thought, yeah, well, she said, you have a bigger audience than those last three combined, so why don't you do something about it? And it really kind of hit me hard, and I thought, why don't I do something about it? I mean, why don't I create a platform to just ask the questions and tell the truth without all the spin and let people make up their own mind? I mean, somebody needs to say, have you thought about, or did you know that last year 33,000 plus Chinese came across the border illegally? Did you know that? And I just want you to know, and do with it as you will. And if it causes you to start asking questions and writing your congressman or asking questions of them, then great. But you ought to at least know this is happening. I don't want you to come up 5 years from now and say, well, nobody ever said anything to me. Well, yeah, they did. I raised my hand and I said it. And maybe it'll cause somebody else to say it, and somebody else to say it.
Has anybody had a conversation with you about this that has an opposing perspective?
Oh, of course. I mean,
what is their perspective?
Their perspective is these aren't illegal immigrants. You can't. That's not kind to say they're illegal.
Okay.
Well,
Well, we've always used that term for lack of a better term.
Well, okay, so
Undocumented. What do you want to call them?
well, that's unkind. They're migrants, and I understand they want to be here. I don't begrudge them that. If I was living over there, under an oppressive government like that, I would want to be gone, and I totally get it. I would want to be out of there. I really do. I get that, but that doesn't change the fact that we have to pretend that we don't know what's going on. We need to be aware of it, and if it means that we need to say, look, this is concerning. We shouldn't be selling farmland around military installations. There's a lot of land to buy. Wonder why they're buying it right up against military installations.
Have any politicians talked about this? Has Trump ever talked about this?
Not that I am aware of.
Why would that not be something he would bring up?
Well, you would certainly think he would.
Yeah. I mean, I know he's talked about the border, but I don't think he's talked about it in depth. Is it possible that he's not aware of it as far as the way you're aware of it?
God, how could he not?
How could he not be? But then again, the guy's got like 5 legal cases going on. He's running for president. He's selling sneakers.
Yeah.
See the sneakers?
No, I saw
fresh.
that he was selling.
Getting a pair for Tony Hinchcliffe. They're perfect for him. They're gold. They're gold sneakers. He's got like 3 pairs. One's white. One's red. Yeah.
Wow, that's rough.
Hey, stop it, Jamie.
$400. That's like expensive.
Oh, I heard there was 5,000. That's what I think they're already sold out. They're selling them online for $5,000 because we're gonna wear them for Sober October.
Okay,
Look at those things. Look at these monstrosities. Look at these things.
Oh wow! You're gonna get a pair?
Oh hell yeah! I can see
Okay.
Dr. Phil rocking a Trump gold
How do
shoes.
I airdrop something to you?
Oh, here we
how
go
do you
again.
come up?
It'd be like Jamie's MacBook Pro,
Got
MVP.
it.
Got it.
Bam.
I just airdropped this to you. It says waiting.
I am accepting it.
Okay.
What is this?
This is this map with the military installations. You got to look at this.
Is it similar to what he just showed?
No.
Jamie just showed where the farmland was.
Yeah,
So let's,
this is different. Look
okay.
at this.
So there's the military.
That's the farmland. There's the military installations on top of it.
Oh wow. That's crazy.
Look at that. Now, is that?
Look how much farmland they have.
But is that accidental? Come on. That's not random.
It doesn't seem too random, but it also seems amazing how much farmland they have.
Yeah.
Was this always legal? Is that the part of the problem with our open society that any foreign country can come over here, any foreign investor can come over here and buy land?
Well, I thought there was restrictions on what foreign entities could buy.
So number one is Canada. Canada has the most farmland. They own 12.8 million acres here. Netherlands owns 4.9. Italy owns 2.7. UK 2.5. Germany 2.3. And China
380,000.
380,000. And this is as of 2023,
Summer.
June of last year. Yeah, it seems pretty strategic where it's owned. Yeah.
Yeah, because if you put that back up for a second, let me tell you what's at some of these places.
What it says right at the beginning is
Land near the Air Force Base in Grand Forks, North Dakota, sending lawmakers into a frenzy in 2021. Yeah, you know, there's another thing that Mike Baker, who's from the CIA, had brought up, is that one of the things they're doing is selling cell phone tower equipment and selling routers and undercutting other companies and making like really good deals so they can set up these cheap routers and cell phone companies. And, you know, a lot of these have been proven, especially with the company Huawei, right? When they outlawed Huawei from selling phones in this country.
Yeah.
They were proven that some of their technology has third-party access. They can do things and siphon information and perhaps even, you know, intercept cell phone signals.
Yeah. Well, at that where they bought in Utah, it's the largest supersonic authorized restricted airspace in the United States. They've got land right next to it. Whitman Air Force Base, B-2 Spirit Stealth Bomber Base, missile and drone operations, MQ-9 Reaper, Global Strike Command, 3 intercontinental ballistic missile wings, and they're right next to it. Fort Liberty, they're right next to it. I mean, all of that stuff. Why would you want your biggest global threat next to those? You have no idea what they have there.
I don't play StarCraft, but I imagine if I was watching someone play StarCraft and all this was setting up, I'm like, oh, they're going to get smoked.
Yeah, that's. I mean, it's just.
It's insane.
I think you got to be concerned.
But it's just weird that it's legal. It really is. It's really weird, and especially given what we know about Chinese corporations, that they are a part of the government. They work hand in hand. They don't get to be independent.
Yeah, and
So still, lawmakers from both parties want to limit purchases by Chinese companies, especially those with ties to the Chinese government, which is all of them, and individuals. To this end, there are several bills in Congress aimed at limiting Chinese ownership. Separately, the Biden administration is tightening its rules over who can buy land near military bases. We're going to tighten those rules. What does that mean? How about just make it illegal? Tightening the rules seems.
And
you
you
should
know what-
take back the land.
you know what worries me about
Take back the land. That I can't wait till you guys hear the ending of it, because one state did exactly that, and I don't know why the rest of them aren't doing it. Even if they don't even have an issue with that, like, do it preemptively. But I don't know, man. You know what's really funny? Joe Rogan made a StarCraft reference. Dr. Phil's 72 years old. He doesn't know what StarCraft is. He has no idea what StarCraft is. His children are grown people with bad knees. You know what I mean? I'm just saying. There's no way he knows what that is. Yeah, so let's just get into it. Now, I will say one thing that they mentioned at the beginning of the clip. Some corporate media have been talking about it, but the way that they position the story is always different than, or, you know, I'll say it's more optimistic than what is actually happening. Because when Dr. Phil showed that map of the military bases and the farmland, you can't really look at that optimistically. It's odd. It's odd. You know what I mean? And it's also odd that these places are just like, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, it's fine. Whatever. It's really, really interesting. And the funny thing is, with North Dakota, the people, we the people, the citizens, they were not okay with it at all. But the people who were making money from it, they were fine with it. And I think that has a little bit to do with it. And it is weird that it is legal, because you cannot go to China and buy land, period. You may not even be able to rent a place. It might be a process even to just do that. But you're definitely not buying. You're not buying land, and you're definitely not buying farmland. There's no chance. Now, I will touch on what they were talking about with Trump. Does Trump know about this? Trump does know about this, but here's the thing. Do you remember what happened to Trump when he decided to start calling a certain virus the China virus? You remember what happened to him? Here, let's take a stroll down memory lane real quick, okay, guys? Let's take a stroll down memory lane.
Why do you keep calling this the Chinese virus? There are reports of dozens of incidents of bias against Chinese Americans in this country. Your own aide, Secretary Azar, says he does not use this term. He says ethnicity does not cause the virus. Why do you keep using this? A lot of people say it's racist.
It's not racist at all. No, not at all. It comes from China. That's why. It comes from China. I want to be accurate. Yeah, please, John. Please.
Behind you. Are you comfortable
I have
with this term?
I have great love for all of the people from our country, but as you know, China tried to say at one point, maybe they stopped now, that it was caused by American soldiers. That can't happen. It's not going to happen. Not as long as I'm president. It comes from China.
It comes from China. That's it. So that happened, okay? He decided to say that. You know what happened after he said that? This happened. Trump's China virus tweet linked to a rise in anti-Asian hashtags on Twitter, back when Twitter was Twitter. Trump defends using China virus label, ignoring growing criticisms. Trump's slur makes some people blame Chinese Americans, but others blame Trump. So the reason that I'm showing you this is, imagine, right? This is like, they're talking about this. Trump know about this? Does he know about all the Chinese immigrants that have come across illegally? Does he know about the farmland? Imagine Trump just decides, while he's running for president today, decides to say, China is invading our country and I'm going to put a stop to it. It's the Chinese that's the problem. Could you imagine he said that? That would be the worst thing. He cannot say that. He couldn't even talk. It either came from a lab or from a wet market. I don't know which. I've never been over there. He says it to be accurate, and he gets branded as a racist. Could you only imagine what happens to him if he starts talking about what's going on? Now, when he goes about what we're going to talk about next, which is his mass deportation operation, that kind of touches on this exactly. It touches on all the immigrants that have come over illegally, and slowly it starts to touch on the whole farmland situation. Now, also, as a president, he cannot really, the same way Governor Abbott decided to go against what Biden said when it came to the border, other governors running states would be able to go against him saying, hey, you can't have that person buy land. They'd be like, that's up to us. You don't get you can't reach down. This is state level. We're handling this state level. So it would be kind of tough. Now, let's move on to the deportation. Trump vows to invoke wartime law to deport suspected foreign gang members and drug dealers. Now, this is how this has been branded, but in actuality, that's not what this law he's going to enact actually is about. It's about deeming people as enemies based on their ideologies. That's a real thing. It sounds kind of messed up, but it's a real thing. Trump vows to invoke a law from 1798, handle illegals as the largest deportation operation in U.S. history. Now, a lot of people hear him say this, and it's just like, oh, this is just more of Trump just saying he can do something. He's going to have the largest one in history, blah, blah, blah. He's not allowed to do this. He actually is allowed to do this. He actually is allowed to do this. Now, we're going to hear him talk about this a little bit in this next clip. Then I'm going to have him talk about an example of what he can do to actually make this happen. Then we're going to be going a little deeper into this whole plan and how it's actually going to work, the actual law side of it. So let's start with this.
What's your question for the former president?
Okay, you said that you can take care of the border in 24 hours after taking office. How will you gather the several millions that have already entered our country illegally and return them to their country of origin?
Great question. It's not sustainable for our country. We have millions and millions of people here. It is not sustainable. Did you see in New York City where they're getting the regular students out and they're putting migrants in their place? We are going to have the largest deportation effort in the history of our country. We're bringing everybody back to where they came from. We have no choice. We have no choice.
Now, these people do not seem impressed with that answer at all, but it is something that kind of has to happen, especially when it comes to, everybody knows about that one guy from the Middle East. You're going to know who I am. And then it turns out he's on the terrorist watch list. What? There's been so many that are on the terrorist watch list. There are some gang members. That is a thing. It's just, and then people always touch on the talking point of military-aged men. And it's not just a talking point. It's a fact when you actually look at the interviews that people are conducting at the border. Texas, Arizona, California. It's wild. It's absolutely wild. Now, here's an example of something that he can do to actually make this type of thing happen. Here, let's play this.
Oh, that's nice. You mean they sent them? Absolutely.
Whoa, why do I play it so fast? I gotta listen fast, guys. Sorry, let me just play this.
In caravans, they send them up, they dump them in our country. That's why they have empty jails. That's why their jails are empty. You know what they save? You know what they don't want them for 50 years in jail or more or less. They don't want them. They don't want MS-13. They don't want these killers and murderers. So they said, sir, they won't take them. They put planes, big planes on the runway. So when our plane comes in loaded up with people, they had to go away. And they put bus stops. They put all of these stoppers, big stoppers. You blow out the tires. They have them to the ground. They pop up. They blow out the tires of our buses and vans as we bring them back into the various countries, Honduras, El Salvador, different countries, all different countries. They come from a lot of different countries. So what happens? Guatemala, a lot of from Guatemala. So what happens is they said, you'll never get them back. I said, how much money do we pay those countries in foreign aid? Sir, we pay them $750 million. It's a lot, not big compared to what some countries get, stupidly, but we pay them $750 million. I said, please inform them that starting tomorrow morning, they are not getting any more foreign aid. So about an hour after we informed them, I got a call from all three of them, but separate. And they said, sir, there seems to be a problem, a misunderstanding. I said, yeah, there is. For 10 years, 15 years, you wouldn't take these people that you send back, and they send them. Don't kid yourself. They don't want them in their country. They send them up in the caravan. You wouldn't take them back, right? And they said, no, that's not my understanding, but we would be very happy to talk. I said, here's the story. If you don't take them back, you'll never see anything from the United States in terms of foreign aid. Nothing. And all three of them, they didn't even have to hang up the phone. They said, sir, we would be greatly honored to take back MS-13 killers. We would greatly be honored to take back murderers and thugs of all type. This would be our great honor. We hope you're happy, sir. Are you happy? I said, yes, but I still didn't pay him the money. I held it back. And to keep America safe from terror, that was a big deal because they wouldn't take them back. We were stuck with them. And Obama and Biden, you know, I doubt he was very much involved. But Obama and the Obama administration, including crooked Joe Biden, would not take them back, would not make any deals. All they did was accept the fact that these countries wouldn't take them back. I got a thing called a telephone. You can do a lot with a telephone.
This guy, he's hilarious. I don't care what anybody says. I don't know how you don't think that's hilarious. I just didn't pay them anyway. I held it back, you know. But it's interesting to hear it in such a blunt way, which is, you know, that's Trump's superpower, the disrespect, the bluntness that he has. Because why didn't other administrations ever step in and do something like that? If you do have the power as president, you can just get on the phone and just call people and just say, this is what I'm doing. And if you don't help, or if you don't bow down to what I'm telling you, I'm taking this away from you. Like, how is it that a country could be sending people or doing anything to America and also collecting money from America? How does that work? And I guess it just takes a common sense person like Trump to just be like, we're giving you this much and you're not helping me here. Well, if you don't help me, I'm not giving you the money. And that's kind of common sense. It just is. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's very, very interesting. But that's just one example of things that he could do if he chooses to. And for some people, that might be a bit harsh, might be a bit brash. It's like, oh, the innocent people, the citizens of that country, they're going to suffer. They didn't do anything. Well, it's like, I don't know. He's not asking for that much. He's just saying, listen, you've got to take these people back. And that's going to be something he's going to be able to do for pretty much all the South American countries. He's going to be able to make those kind of, you know, for lack of a better word, threats. He's going to be able to do that definitely with China, I would think. He'll be able to do that with Russia for sure. That'll be easy. European places will be easy. I think South America would be easy. The toughest, I think, would be China. Maybe China would be like, oh, we don't want them. They're illegal. But if all people's suspicions are correct, China will be like, okay, we'll take them back. You know? Because if you're sending them, because, you know, throughout the videos that I've made about this, there is one thing that's for sure. These people are getting flown. I mean, this has been substantiated. This has been verified by people who are working at the border, that these people are flying in. So if they're flying in, you know, people have said this, I've said this, you can't really just fly out of China. Like Dr. Phil said it in the clip, you don't just get to take a vacation and that's it. You kind of got to get cleared. So someone's clearing them to fly over. I don't know. China's a pretty orderly place. For 30,000 people to leave, just disappear, I feel like China would know. Just saying. Now, let's get into the law side of things. Somebody's just going to bring up the law that he's actually going to enact and what that looks like. Here you go.
By invoking a law from 1798 to deport gang members, and by enlisting the National Guard Bob, to arrest migrants. He has also promised to enact new screenings for legal immigrants to deny entry to those who have certain political beliefs, such as Marxists, as the former president would call them. And he has promised to deny U.S. citizenship to the children of undocumented immigrants, those who are living here in the country unlawfully. His rhetoric on immigration, Bob, has also escalated and intensified. He recently said that some migrants here are poisoning the blood of the country. And
so that is the law. It is a law from 1798. He said gang members. It's actually, we're going to get into it more. It's not just for gang members. There were, I won't say there were no gang members back in 1798, but that's not why they were using them. That's not why they were detaining people and deporting them. It was completely different back then. But that is the law that he's calling on. And he is going to be using the National Guard. That is a real thing. And we're going to discuss that and how he's actually legally able to take National Guard from red states and actually have them go to blue states legally and actually round up the illegal immigrants and take them to wherever and then actually deport them back to where they're from. That's a real thing that he can do. Let's touch on this a little bit. Where are we going to go from here? Just real quick. The first 3 acts took aim at the rights of immigrants. The period of residency required before immigrants could apply for citizenship extended from 5 years to 14 years. The president gained the power to detain and deport those he deemed enemies. So that's part of this law. This is just a section out of a website. But that is part of the law. He will be able to detain and deport people who are deemed enemies. Now, this could be immigrants who came illegally just because they came in on the premise they broke the law. That was the first thing they did as they entered the country. This also will be people, again, who are illegal immigrants. This is not just everybody, but this is illegal immigrants that are, say, a Marxist or a communist, have those beliefs. Now, we've seen a lot of interviews with people who are interviewing migrants, and they're all talking about voting for Biden and how much they love Biden. It's like, how do you deem somebody like that an enemy? How many people come over from other countries and say, I am a communist, I want to see socialism sweep through the nation? Not many people are saying that. They tend to be pretty quiet and pretty grateful, and they're just trying to, expedite the process of getting into the country and staying. So that is what the law is going to do. Now, this is just this paragraph that I found. This is just talking about when the law was actually established back in 1798. President Adams, who the law was created while he was president, never took advantage of the newfound ability to deny rights to immigrants. However, the 4th Act, the Sedition Act, was put into practice and became a black mark on the nation's reputation in direct violation of the Constitution's guarantee of freedom of speech. The Sedition Act permitted the prosecutions of individuals who voiced or printed what the government deemed to be malice remarks about the president or the government of the United States. Now, this is where things get really murky. Now, this is a law that Trump wants to call on, right? And I'm in full defense of Trump. I've talked about my bias so many times. I think he's the best person for the job. I want to see him as president. But I will say that this gets kind of murky, because even back then, it does say at the end of this paragraph, mainly the people who were prosecuted were journalists. Some were imprisoned under the act, and 14 Republicans. So it gets really murky. Now, what Trump wants to do when he calls on this law is just take illegal immigrants and have them leave. Now, again, you can't prove that someone has an idea. You can't prove just because someone's from Venezuela that they agreed with everything the Venezuelan government was doing. In fact, you can kind of say that they didn't agree, which is why they left. You can kind of make the same case for anybody who came over from China. You can't say someone came all the way to the United States from China and that they agree with everything the Communist Party is doing. You can't really make that case. So I don't know how he's going to do that, but it does give him the ability to detain and deport immigrants. It's an old law, but it's there for him to use. So let's just get into a little bit more of this. Now, somebody's actually going to be breaking down how the National Guard comes into play and why this is all legal. Let's get into that.
On that mass deportation plan that...
Wow, I don't know why I do that. I listen to it fast. I don't know, guys. I don't take Adderall. I don't drink coffee, but I just listen to things really fast. I'm sorry. Let's go.
Deportation plan that Trump has talked about, including this weekend. We know some details of how it would be carried out from Stephen Miller, the architect of Trump's first-term immigration policies, who remains a close ally and advisor to the president. Stephen Miller talked about how they would carry out that type of deportation plan to right-wing personality Charlie Kirk last fall.
Then in terms of personnel, you go to the red state governors and you say, give us your National Guard. We will deputize them as immigration enforcement officers. The Alabama National Guard is going to arrest illegal aliens in Alabama, and the Virginia National Guard in Virginia. And if you're going to go into an unfriendly state like Maryland, well, then it would just be Virginia doing the arrest in Maryland, right? Very close, very nearby.
So there, Stephen Miller is talking about how they would federalize the National Guard to carry out the mass deportation plan. Through comments from Stephen Miller, through comments from the former president himself, reports as well as aligned policy groups. We have a picture of the type of immigration policies that the former president would implement if he were to win a second term. And so the list that we have is not an exhaustive list, but it includes building large-scale camps near the southern border, a renewed Muslim travel ban, the end of birthright citizenship for U.S.-born children of undocumented immigrants, and creating a federalized army of red state National Guards, like Stephen Miller referenced.
Is that legally possible, even federalizing red state National Guard?
So technically, yes, it is. I spoke to Joseph Nunn. He is from the Brennan Center for Justice, and he is a legal expert on U.S. military activities domestically. And he said that this is legally possible for the president to do.
Donald Trump's proposal to send the National Guard from red states into blue states in order to enforce this deportation program could only be accomplished through invoking the Insurrection Act. The Insurrection Act makes the president the sole judge of whether a given situation warrants invoking the act. In other words, an insurrection is whatever the president says is an insurrection. That's why it's so important for Congress to reform the Insurrection Act, to put in place safeguards against abuse, because as things stand, there are quite literally no guardrails.
So as Joseph Nunn said there, former President Trump has pretty wide authority to institute the Insurrection Act in order to federalize National Guards and be able to send them into other states to round up migrants. And the last time, Amna, that the Insurrection Act was invoked was 1992. It's rarely used. And before that, the only time it was ever invoked over the objection of states and state leaders was in the 1960s.
So there you have it. That's how he's going to make that happen. Now, I will say, I just want to bring up really quick, the reason when I was talking about that law, the reason that it was said to be a black mark on the nation's reputation is because it was in direct violation. Apparently, the case was that it was violating the First and 10th Amendment. Now, I don't know about that for sure, but that I just wanted to bring that up because I forgot to say that. Now, talking about this, love Trump, don't like the idea of seeing a militarized presence in the streets, you know? Don't really like that at all. But here's the thing, and it's wild because when you allow such chaos to ensue, like I've talked about this in regards to people who are looting and just doing smash and grabs, running into stores, taking everything. What's going to have to happen in order for that to stop is going to be wild. It's going to be crazy. There's a certain amount of chaos that ramps up when you are trying to subdue the chaos. So it's like if there's so much chaos going on with everything, you're going to have to do something like have National Guard in and start rounding people up. And that's a mind-blowing amount of chaos. That's not a scene that I want to see. But then after it's done, it's like, okay, everything's calm. Okay. Everything gets to go back to normal. This is what all the voters who voted for Trump actually wanted. Everything's calm. We're good. It's a very hard line. I don't want to see any kind of scene like that, because I feel like any government will get comfortable doing that kind of thing if they can. Now, again, based on what you heard just now, they can't just do that. They can do it for that particular instance, but they won't be able to do that for, say, protesters, people who are assembling, you know, I think, but who knows? But yeah, it's a very interesting thing. Now we're going to move on to China buying. So, and just to sum it up, that's how Trump's going to handle it. Again, he can't exactly be like, this one race of people is the problem and they're coming into the country, large amounts. He can't do that. But when he has this large deportation thing going on, all of a sudden that gets everybody who's involved in illegal immigration goes, instead of just pointing at one people and branding himself as a racist once again. You know, it's just no good. And obviously he's not, but that's what the media is going to spin it as, right? So can't do that. Now, when it comes to China buying farmland, let's start this out with a fact from Granny.
With Granny. Did you know that owns 384,000 acres in the U.S.? Guess how many acres the U.S. owns in These are farm facts with Granny.
Just wanted to bring that to you guys real quick, okay? That's a solid fact, okay? I don't want to hear a bad word about that lady. It's a nice woman. Good granny. But it's true. It's so true. She summed it up very quickly. As someone, if you can't go to China and buy any land, but for some reason, Canada is able to own a massive amount of farmland. Germany, China. It's very odd. Why wouldn't you keep all that farmland and just invest into creating more farmers? My thought process right away, and we're going to talk about China and why they're doing it, but my thought process right away, why you're willing to give away so much farmland and not invest into creating more American farmers and having that tradition go on and on and on, self-sufficiency. They don't want to see too much self-sufficiency. What happens when they allow other nations to buy farmland? Takes away self-sufficiency from the citizens and also brings money into the government. That's my thought process right away. Let's get into the first clip. It's going to be a farmer named John Boyd Jr. I love this guy. He's going to be talking about why this is a bad thing and what he's been seeing himself as a farmer. Let's get into it.
A government watchdog report is sounding the alarm that the Biden administration is failing to properly track foreign ownership of U.S. farmland, saying, quote, the USDA cannot report reliable information to Congress or to the public about where or how much U.S. agricultural land is held by foreign persons.
The most recent USDA report from 2021 shows Chinese entities own almost 400,000 acres across 28 states.
Our next guest warns that this is the most urgent issue facing our nation and our food supply. Virginia farmer and National Black Farmers Association President John Boyd Jr. joins us now. John, it's so great to have you back on the show. I agree with you. This is of massive concern. I'm wondering, why can't our government track it? Is it that they are under shell companies? What's the problem here?
Well, it starts from the top, and I think the president hasn't done a good job at making China, the threat of China, a priority. You know, how in the world can China come over here and own 400,000 acres of America's farm ground, and we can't go to China and purchase any land there? And what it does is putting farmers, American farmers, out of business. If USDA and this administration had put a farm moratorium in place, like I've been asking on your show, it would, help prevent some of these sales, these auctions that China's coming over here running up prices, land prices for America's farmland. They're stealing seed technology from America's farmers on soybeans and corn that I have to pay $60, $70 a bag for this technology. China's over here stealing it. That's a threat to America's agriculture, farm belt in this country. It's national security, where they're buying land next to military bases. All of these things are happening on this administration's watch, and they haven't said anything about it, about how to put a law in place to prevent China from buying America's farmland. That should be the first thing that they should do. You know, if they can repeal debt relief for America's farmers, then they can put a few sentences in a bill to stop China from purchasing American farmland. They shouldn't be able to come to America and buy America's companies like Smithfield Foods. This goes on and on and on, and it's been going on very quietly in this country, where they're buying land from America's farmers. Farmers need good farm ground in order to expand their farming operation, because we're the only people in this country that don't get a raise by minimum wage. We have to do it by production on the three America's commodities: corn, wheat, and soybeans, something that America's farmers do better than anybody. China's over here stealing that technology.
John, it's almost 400,000 acres of U.S. farmland now owned by Chinese entities. And we showed the map just a moment ago. It looked like over 50,000 acres in Texas. It looked like the most pure acreage in Texas or Utah, Virginia, North Carolina, Florida, Missouri. Any consistency, John, into the types of farms or ranches that are targeted by Chinese entities? I know cotton's big in Texas, but you just named soy and some other products as well. Or is it just all farmland?
Well, it's definitely good farm ground, and definitely soybeans and corn. China is still the #1 purchaser of soybeans from the United States. Could possibly be one of the reasons why the administration don't want to stand up to them. But somebody has to take a strong leadership approach towards China and say, you know what, enough is enough. We're not able to do these things in your country. You shouldn't be able to come to the United States with no curtail whatsoever and purchase America's best farm ground and steal technology from America's farmers. Something should be done here. Farmers are the hardest working people. We can work 24/7 and we never would catch up, you know? And here this administration hasn't done enough to keep America's farmers on the farm. And the #1 thing they could have done was stop farm foreclosures. That would stop China from showing up at these farm auctions and purchasing America's farm ground.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't even know that existed. Farm foreclosures. That's a very sad thing. You would think that, you know, you're able to bail out banks. Why wouldn't you be able to bail out a farm? You know? I don't know. Maybe that's dumb thinking. I don't know. But it just seems like that's something you want to keep going. You know, it helps the economy, helps people stay on their feet. It's probably a substantial amount of jobs in each farm, depending on its size. Why would you just let it go into foreclosure like that? They never let a bank just die out. Why would you let a farm die out? I don't know. Again, back to self-sufficiency. But that was John Boyd Jr. He is I think, 3rd or 4th generation farmer. And he always speaks up for farmers. You can go look him up. There's a lot of footage of him just speaking about everything that's happening to farmers from all angles, whether it's China or it's the government or whatever. He's always covering it. He always speaks up. It's great. Now, one thing that I did see in this that I think a lot of people should click into real quick, just going back into this, GAO. If you see there, right beside my little screen, U.S. Government Accountability Office. Now, when I was looking into, funny enough, lasers and laser technology, I stumbled onto that site. I suggest you go and find that site and sign up to their email list. They will email you things that they are trying to have the government be held accountable for, whether it's a little thing or a big thing. It might be defense stuff. It might be agriculture. I get multiple emails a week. I don't know this organization. I just found it really cool that they just keep me in the know of what the government needs to be held accountable for. So just something I throw out there really quick. Let's move on, though. We got another one. This is about stealing IP. Now, when I first heard that, I thought of technology. I didn't even think. I made a video about this. I sounded so dumb. I'm like, they can't steal. They could do it from a computer. And that is not the type of IP that they are looking at taking. Seeds are technology. The soil, farms, their techniques, this is all technology, and this is the type of IP that they can steal. Here's a small, quick clip of that type of stuff. That type of stuff. Sound like Mike Tyson for a second.
Pretty interesting stuff. Lawmakers are concerned over China's growing influence in the United States, and they are looking into China's expanding purchases of large amounts of American property. Fox News correspondent Brian Yanis has that story for us this morning.
The bottom line gets thinner and thinner and tighter and tighter.
Sixth-generation Iowa farmer Suzanne Sherbrun says China's relentless efforts to steal billions of dollars worth of America's secret, patented, genetically engineered seeds is costing farmers and potentially threatening America's food supply.
When China steals that IP from a seed company, that money has to be made up somewhere. And so unfortunately, the U.S. farmer is the one that's going to deal with it.
Over the last few years, Chinese nationals have been convicted of stealing genetically engineered corn seeds in Iowa, rice seeds in Kansas, and a company's software farm algorithm in Missouri.
They don't innovate like we do. We have a free market economy. And so the only out for them is to steal our secrets.
You're being robbed every day. At a congressional roundtable in Dysart, Iowa, the Select Committee on China discussed how China is preparing for conflict with the U.S. over Taiwan. China now owns 384,000 acres of land in the U.S. That's up 456% since 2011. Particularly alarming are attempted agricultural land purchases near U.S. military bases, land that lawmakers warn could be used for spying or for spreading bioweapons that could decimate our crops.
What keeps me up at night is if they're stealing our seeds and they're reverse engineering to know what makes them hardy, what makes them drought resistant, what makes them pest resistant. What's to say they couldn't turn that around on us? Our food supply is sacred. It's a national security issue.
Here's the...
Yeah, I never thought of that. I never thought of like taking seeds, figuring that out. You know, because from my understanding, China is the biggest buyer of soybeans from America, oddly enough. So they're dependent. So if they can actually get these seeds and this technology and the farming ways and everything, they could break away and not be dependent on the US for anything agriculturally. And if they know, like this woman just brought up, if they know about your seeds and everything like that, they could possibly, especially since they are in the country and they're so close and they could actually create a dependence as well. So that's a big worry. Big worry. Very interesting stuff. Again, I felt so dumb when I realized what the IP actually was. I was like, seeds. I'm like, that's technology. I'm like, I'm not thinking. So funny. You're about to hear Rep. Waltz. He's going to be talking about what they are buying and why in regards to these Chinese entities. And just to bring up something that John Boyd brought up real quick, Smithfield Foods bought out by a Chinese entity. Just in case you know of that company, just keep that in mind. Let's move on.
Yes, Sean, let me tell you what's going on in these Air Force bases. Number one, the one in North Dakota has some of our most sensitive drone and space technology that connects our space assets to our drones. So to intercept that from a few miles away isn't that hard. And down in Texas, where they're buying up hundreds of thousands of acres, where we train our pilots, the bigger piece, Sean, is that the Chinese Communist Party, as part of their national strategy to replace us as a global power, is seeking to dominate our supply chains. They already dominate our pharmaceuticals. They dominate solar panels and wind turbines that the left are trying to push us towards, the lithium supply. And in this case, now it's our food supply. In addition to this land that they're buying up, they've also bought the nation's largest pork processing plant. They're buying up grain mills because they know that if they can win this economically, if they can choke us off with these key supply chains, add computer chips and all kinds of others on top of it, then they don't even have to worry about a military conflict. And
Interesting. Very, very interesting. North Dakota, that actually has happened. And again, I think I brought this up at the beginning. The people of North Dakota were very wary of this, but for some reason, and I think the reason is money, the people who were making money off of this were not worried at all. They're like, it's fine. It's not a national security threat, things of that nature. But this guy, Rep. Waltz, I believe he is, I think it said rep for Florida. he's very deep into this. I actually have another clip of him talking about this, and this is where he talks about an FBI report regarding this different IP of seeds and whatnot. So let's get into that.
No, it absolutely does, and it completely flies in the face of the FBI director who just had a speech standing next to the British head of MI5, who cited a case where we had Chinese agents digging up crops because they were genetically modified so they could reverse engineer them and send them back to China. If they're able to feed their people independently, and they're able to create dependencies with the United States and the rest of the world, they can then choke off those supplies and use that as leverage geopolitically. And they're doing it across technology sectors, food supplies, energy supplies, and it's part of what they call China 2025, where they are trying to create global dependencies, and then they hand the technology as part of what they call their Civ Mill fusion program over to their military. This is all being run by the Chinese Communist Party and as part of Chairman Xi's plan to become a dominant world power.
Yeah.
It's very interesting when you hear stuff like that. That's where it gets like, oh yeah, it's all linked to China. It's all linked to the Communist Party, is it? Well, Arkansas decided they're not leaving any stone unturned. They actually took action. Sarah Huckabee Sanders, the governor, decided to actually take steps towards not having any Chinese entities own anything in Arkansas. And here she is talking about it. As well, I'll show you another clip from her attorney general who actually verifies. Now, they don't want to release too much, but he verifies that these entities that did own land these Chinese entities that did own land in Arkansas were connected directly to the Chinese Communist Party. Let's go.
Death to America, an authoritarian Russia, and a Chinese Communist Party whose stated goal is to defeat the United States at every turn. Yet for too long, in the name of tolerance, we've let these dangerous governments infiltrate our country. Arkansas will tolerate them no longer. Today, we are becoming the first state in the country to take an action like the one that we are announcing right now. At the beginning of my term, my administration worked with our partners in the legislature to get hostile foreign entities out of Arkansas. I was proud to sign Act 636, sponsored by Senator Johnson and Representative Vaught, banning foreign parties from 9 enemy countries from owning agricultural land in Arkansas. And today, we are acting on that law. I'm announcing that Syngenta, a Chinese state-owned agrochemical company, must give up its land holdings in Arkansas. Syngenta owns 160 acres in northeast Arkansas, which it uses primarily for seed research. The company that owns Syngenta, Chem China, is also on the Department of Defense's list of Chinese military companies posing a clear threat to our state. Seeds are technology. Chinese state-owned corporations filter that technology back to their homeland, stealing American research and telling our enemies how to target American farms. That is a clear threat to our national security and to our great farmers, especially since the Chinese government enacted a law in 2017 requiring Chinese citizens abroad to collaborate with their country's security officials on intelligence work with no questions asked. This isn't about where you're from. We welcome Chinese Americans, Russian Americans, and anyone else who's given up foreign oppression for American freedom. This is about where your loyalties lie. We simply cannot trust those who pledge allegiance to a hostile foreign power. That's why I signed Act 525, sponsored by Representative McKenzie and Senator Boyd, to ban Chinese and Russian-made drones. And it's why I signed Act 758, sponsored by Representative McAlinden and Senator Stubblefield, banning public contracts with the CCP. We will make sure that every company operating in Arkansas is a friend to Arkansas and good to hardworking Arkansans. Secretary Ward has already notified Syngenta about this decision. If they refuse to sell, our Attorney General can move forward with legal proceedings and force them to get out of our state. Arkansas will always protect our farmers and our national security interest. I want to thank our legislature for passing this common sense measure, and I want to thank the Department of Agriculture for working so hard on this issue. I will now turn it over to Attorney General Griffin to address his team's next steps.
Well, that's what it looks like when you're not afraid to be called racist. When you're just like, listen, I got something to take care of here, and, you know, you're on the outside of it. Very, very interesting that they're able to do this. And then it begs the question, why isn't every other state doing it? They said that throughout the clips that we saw that they own farmland near military sites throughout, I believe it was 28 different states. Why aren't there 28 governors just being like, hey, you got to go? I think it's money. I think it's money, and I think it's always a little bit of, you know, what's my base going to think about this? I don't know. What's the media going to say? Media's going to call you racist. That's what they do. You could do something that's not racist, and the media is going to call you racist. It's okay. Don't worry about it. You got to brush it off. But amazing steps. Amazing steps. I don't know much about Sarah Huckabee Sanders, but I do know that this is something she did, and I like it. I like it a lot. I don't know about you guys. Let me know in the comments. But now we're going to hear from her attorney general. Real quick clip, because a lot of people, you know, you sound too conspiratorial when you're trying to link it to the Chinese Communist Party. But even she said that they have to, any entity actually has to collaborate with intelligence. Oh my God, with national security in China in regards to intelligence. That's crazy. And I mean, it's a well-known thing, which is why you're not supposed to trust TikTok. That's why. And just so you know, there's a company called Tencent that owns TikTok, and they own stock in WhatsApp and I think Facebook and Instagram and all sorts of stuff. It's a massive company. You should really learn about the company called Tencent. But let's hear from the Attorney General real quick.
We, like the Attorney General said, when we're ready.
Wow. Why is it always so fast, Colin? Sorry, guys. Let's go.
To make public any other areas and people we're watching, but certainly we're always looking, and we'll continue to monitor anything that we deem that could be a threat to our state's agriculture industry as well as our national security.
Yeah, I would say.
Yeah.
I would say one more thing as it relates to China in particular. Because of the nature of China's government structure, SOEs, as they're called, state-owned enterprises, are a way of doing business. And so the idea that there's all these prosperous, large and growing Chinese companies that don't have ties to the Chinese government, direct ties, that's just not the case. Now, there are varying degrees of ties, but in this case, these are Chinese government-owned.
Interesting. So again, this was at a moment where they weren't willing to let go of any technology, or sorry, not technology, any information that they had found out. All they knew was that it was connected to the Communist Party in China, and they just wanted them out of their state. And that's that's all they were willing to talk about at the time. I don't know if that's changed, but again, ask yourself, why haven't other governors done this? Why are they allowing this? Why isn't anybody putting a stop to this? It's very, very interesting. And again, I don't think that this is something that Trump will be able to change as president. But here's the thing. When you think of a president, you think of all of this stuff that they have to do. Whereas, you know, Trump, he said it in the clip that I played at the beginning. He's like, I got a thing called a telephone. There's a lot you can do with a telephone. He, I think, is the type in office that will call up and be like, hey, whoa, what happened? What's going on over there? Yeah, well, you know what? We're doing this for you. I think you should be doing this. And if you don't do this, this is going to happen. And it sounds rough. It sounds rough. But if it means that situation changes, I think it's something that he'll do. But just wanted to show you guys all of that. Consider this the end of the documentary. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And other than that, I'm out.